Pushing the issue of terrorism back into the U.S. presidential race on Monday, both presumptive nominees, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, weighed in on the shooting, reflecting major differences on terrorism and immigration. Take a listen.
Inflammatory, anti-Muslim rhetoric and threatening to ban the families and friends of Muslim Americans, as well as millions of Muslim business people and tourists from entering our country, hurts the vast majority of Muslims who love freedom and hate terror.
We cannot continue to allow thousands upon thousands of people to pour into our country, many of whom have the same thought process as this savage killer. Many of the principles of radical Islam are incompatible with Western values and institutions.
All right, joining me here in L.A. is James Lacey, the author of Taxifornia and a Trump supporter, and also Democratic strategist Matthew Littman here in studio. Thanks to both of you gentlemen for joining me. So let's talk a little bit more about Trump and him doubling down on the Muslim ban. I want to start with you, James, because, you know, when you look at this case in Orlando, the shooter was born in New York, not in Afghanistan. His parents are from Afghanistan. So how would a ban on Muslims have prevented this shooting?
Well, I think a more fundamental question is how could someone be on the terrorist watch list and then end up getting these weapons to be able to kill 49 people? Do you know if this administration had kept this guy on the terrorist watch list, there'd be 49 more people alive today? And it's just like the situation with the Tsarnaev brothers in Boston, where you had 14 people killed and 245 maimed, and those brothers were on the
right, and we can talk about that terror gap in the gun control issue. Yeah. But again, my question to you is, Trump has been pushing this ban of Muslims entering the United States very hard.
He's pushing two things. He's pushing two things.
So how would a Muslim ban have prevented this terror attack from happening?
He's pushing getting tough, and if we were tough, and you see, it's not just the question of a ban on potential terrorists coming into the United States. And you know, there's so much misinformation on this. It's not intended to be a ban on Muslims. It's intended to be a temporary ban on immigration until we can figure things out.
But even if Donald Trump did, let's say he was president and had passed this ban on immigrants as well. In general, this man was not an immigrant. He was born and raised in the United States. So
I'm trying to come back and answer the question, and that's what you're asking me isn't a question about immigration. What you're asking me, you want me to answer it as if it's a question about immigration. It's a question about getting tough on domestic terrorists. And what we need to do is make certain that when we have someone on a terrorist watch list, that we just take them off the list and allow them to be able to buy these weapons that kill people. You know, we need to get tough. The policies of this administration have been wrong. They've resulted in massive deaths, massive people maimed, like in Boston. And I think that when you look at the Syrian policy, for example, and I'll just say this briefly, here you have an administration that got the Syrian policy wrong, right? They got it wrong, trying to intervene in Syria. And now we have Hillary Clinton welcoming with open arms all these Syrian immigrants to come into the United States.
With a thorough vetting process, mind you, right?
Not a thorough vetting process.
It takes about 18 to 24 months.
Your own network has reported that there are ISIS people that are infiltrating into those ranks. You know, the reality is that we need to have a tougher policy domestically, and we really need to get an immigration policy, and it's not going to come with Hillary Clinton, because that administration has, you know, 15 different shootings across the nation, huge bombings, people hurt. It's been terrible.
Matt, want to chime in on this?
Well, I mean, you're not answering the question really about the Muslim ban in the United States, which is absolutely absurd. You know, we've had shootings since Newtown where 30 kids were killed in Newtown. We've had almost 2,000 shootings. We had 4 people getting killed in a house in New Mexico just today. And this goes on and on and on and on.
3,000 people were killed on 9/11.
That's right.
By Muslim terrorists.
Okay, and this goes on and on. Were the people in Newtown killed by Muslim terrorists?
No, and you know, the people that were killed in Oklahoma City were killed by a domestic terrorist, a white supremacist, and that was terrible. And he didn't do it with an assault weapon. He did it with fertilizer.
Okay, I'm not sure what the relevance is of that. But okay, so we have this problem problem with these AR-15 weapons in the country.
Sure.
Everybody seems to know we have this problem, but the Congress does not have the will, certain members of Congress, to do anything about it. As for the Muslim ban, I mean, some of Donald Trump's foreign policy stuff, as we all know, and we have an international audience tonight, is absolutely crazy. One of his ideas was just to have ISIS fight Syria, fight Assad, and the winner take Syria. That was one of Donald Trump's ideas. Another one is to Arabia have nuclear weapons. You know, another one is to have Japan get nuclear weapons, South Korea get nuclear weapons. I mean, this stuff is just absolutely crazy. So,
yeah, those aren't policies advocated. You're completely
I do feel bad for, you know, the international audience. As an American citizen, I think a lot of people in America are frightened about what Donald Trump means, and I know people around the world are too, and I'm apologizing.
Well,
they should be more frightened by your misstatements of Trump's
voiced around the world. So let's talk a little bit more about, you know, the term radical Islam, because Trump has criticized the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton for not using the term radical Islam, and Clinton has refused to use that wording in the past, saying that she doesn't want to paint this as a war against one religion. But I want to play a soundbite for you. Here's Hillary Clinton speaking to CNN this morning on New Day, and here's what she had to say about why she's now willing to use the term radical Islam.
Called him, and I have clearly said that we face terrorist enemies who use Islam to justify slaughtering innocent people. And, you know, whether you call it radical jihadism, radical Islamism, I think they mean the same thing. I'm happy to say either. But what I won't do, because I think it is dangerous for our efforts to defeat this threat, is to demonize and demagogue and, you know, declare war on an entire religion. That plays right into ISIS's hands.
And, you know, it was also interesting to hear Hillary Clinton call out Middle Eastern allies and also countries in the Middle East for allowing its citizens to fund extremism. But Matthew, I want to ask you about, you know, the Democrats, and do you think that they have been a little too politically correct when it comes to, you know, talking about extremism and the problem in America, and that has painted Democrats as possibly not being strong enough on terrorism?
Oh, no, not at all. As a matter of fact, George W. Bush didn't want to say these same things, use those terms about people who are of the Islamic faith. That's not the issue at all. And as we all know, Barack Obama's been very, very tough on terrorism. He's done a very good job. We've killed so many terrorists over the years, and I give credit to the administration for fighting hard against terrorism, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is Hillary's policies versus Donald Trump's policies. Donald Trump's policies are extraordinarily dangerous. Let's keep in mind that about 60% of the American people say they'd be very embarrassed to have Donald Trump as their president.
Yeah, but you know, 66% of the American people say that the country's headed in the wrong direction, and I can't imagine that Hillary Clinton is going to change of those outlooks, because she's part of this administration. I mean, she developed the Libyan policy that resulted in the disaster of Benghazi. She was involved in the policy that resulted in the disaster of Syria, that's resulted in all of this terrible immigration problems that we have. And, you know, when it comes down to an issue of trust, you know, who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust Donald Trump, who speaks the truth, who isn't politically correct? Or are you going to trust Hillary Clinton, who's taken $10 million from the Saudi government for their foundation? Or Bill Clinton, who's paid $500,000 from government.
So PolitiFact, which is this neutral political, talks about the facts when people speak, so that Donald Trump lies about 1 every 5 statements in his speeches. And, you know, the media, Donald Trump is he is now banning the Washington Post because he's afraid of the media telling the truth about him. I mean, when Donald Trump spoke today, I think that one of the articles on the website Vox said 9 biggest lies in Donald Trump's speech.
The Washington Post isn't entitled to any more First Amendment rights than Donald Trump.
We have to leave it here, gentlemen. We're out of time, but when you talk about not speaking truth, so when we did vet the speech that Donald Trump gave today, and he did mention that Hillary Clinton is trying to get to abolish the Second Amendment. That's not true. Ridiculous. She's just trying to get stricter gun control, and he also mentioned that the gunman was born in Afghanistan.
He didn't say Afghanistan, he said Afghan, which is a quilt that my grandmother used to make.
But you do have a point there as well. Matthew Littman and James Lacey,
and Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton said that he didn't do anything with that woman, too.
We'll continue this in an hour. Thank you so much, gentlemen. All right, we're going to take a short break.